and other programs by various denominations.
Hello, I'm Roger Lotz, and this is Austin Faith Dialogue.
A home, a family. We call it the American dream, but it's in trouble. Each year, 500,000 high school students graduate practically unable to...
This public service announcement describes a program that hopes to increase public awareness of education in Central Texas. It will also look at what we in Austin think of this important issue. Today, we will discuss the state of education in the 90s as we head into the 21st century.
Austin Faith Dialogue, a public affairs series at the crossroads of religion and life. Austin Faith Dialogue highlights the interaction of the religious community with the social and cultural issues in the area in and around the capital city. Austin Faith Dialogue is brought to you by Austin Metropolitan Ministries in cooperation with KTBC TV. Join us now for this week's edition of Austin Faith Dialogue.
This is our future today. These students will be the doctors, lawyers, even the teachers of tomorrow. But the question we should be asking is how well are we preparing them for that task in schools today? The debate over education has heated up in recent months, with the upcoming presidential election making it a primary issue. But many public opinion polls seem to be showing that there is a lack of understanding by the public when it comes to the education of our children. Today we hope to change that a little and discuss a program that hopes to make a local impact in public awareness of the critical role education plays in the social and economic well-being of not only Central Texas, but the nation as a whole. It's called Help Wanted, Must Have Education. It is a series of public information and discussion events designed to increase your awareness on the critical role of education in our society's future. KTBC TV, along with other media outlets in the four-county area of Travis, Hayes, Williamson, and Bastrop, will in the next month conduct an intensive mass media effort on the topic of education. But organizers want you to get involved and have developed a questionnaire which will be distributed in a variety of ways during October. A citywide march up Congress Avenue is even planned, all to stress the importance of education. But to discuss the current state of education, one must know how we are presently doing. According to 1990 statistics, the latest information available, Texas is reported as having the second highest elementary and secondary education enrollment in the United States, with over 3.3 million students. The state's public high school graduation rate of 64.2% ranks 45th in the country, while the Texas dropout rate of close to 36% ranks 7th in the nation. Now joining us to discuss this important issue of education in the 90s and beyond are two people with a key interest in the topic. Our first guest is a co-chairperson of the Help Wanted Must Have Education series. She has also been described as the key to the revitalization now being enjoyed by St. Edward's University. Dr. Pat Hayes is the president of St. Edward's and is a very outspoken advocate of the importance of a good education. Also joining us today on Austin Faith Dialogue is Ed Adams of IBM. He is one of the originators of the Austin-based Help Wanted program. Thank you both for being with us today and joining us. I'd like to go to you first, Ed Adams. What got you involved in creating this program, Help Wanted Must Have Education?
Well, IBM has been involved with the Austin Independent School District for several years now, involved in a project called Project A+. While we were in the early stages of this, IBM was also approached through an organization to which we belong called the Business Roundtable, which is a national organization of CEOs of the largest corporations in America. We're approached by the Public Agenda Foundation. The Public Agenda Foundation is a New York organization which deals with public policy issues and issues of importance to the nation, and they designed a campaign, a generic campaign, which is the Help Wanted campaign. And the objective there is to get communities excited about education, to get people to understand the importance of education to their social and economic well-being. Well, we thought this would be a great thing to bring into the Austin community if the community wanted to do it. And so in January of 1991, we asked the Public Agenda Foundation people to come to Austin and meet with two groups. The first group that they met with was a media group, and these were management of the television stations in Austin and the Austin American-Statesman. And they described the campaign, the techniques, the importance of having a media commitment and an enormous amount of media resource dedicated to a campaign such as the Help Wanted campaign. The media said they would think about whether this is something that they'd like to do. And then we held a subsequent meeting that same day with community leaders. And these were business people, social service agency people, and the leadership of the Austin Independent School District. And they thought, after much discussion, that this might be something we would want to do in Austin. Because the media is so important to this campaign, the whole thing hinged on the media being able to do this. We held several meetings with the media. They decided this was something they wanted to do. And this is unprecedented in Austin, in any city, because in other cities where this campaign has been done, it's usually been one television station and one newspaper. In Austin, we have every major affiliate of Fox, ABC, CBS, and NBC, as well as public television, all committed to this project.
Dr. Hayes, you are a leading educator here in the city of Austin, and what do you hope comes about through this effort, through the Help Wanted campaign?
Two things, really. One is I hope we will provide people with very good information. One of the things the Public Agenda Foundation found in its research is that people weren't as committed to putting their shoulder to the wheel on education as they might need to be because they had some bad data. Things like it impacts somebody else's children, but my kids are doing okay. Not an awareness of how those things interact. Sort of a naivete about internationalism. Everything would be okay in America if everything weren't going wrong in Japan. So not a sense that our destiny is in our own hands. So good information on how this impacts all of us and what the stakes are, and then involvement. So every activity will be an invitation to involvement. And not involvement taking more time necessarily to do something, but involvement as a voter, involvement as a parent, involvement as an employer or employee, and then maybe volunteer involvement.
We're going to discuss the program in general during this program, but I'd like to get to the main point of today's program. Where is the state of education in the 90s, and where do we have to go? And you as an educator, I'd like you to answer that first, but I want to get to you, Mr. Adams, as well, in the basis of, since you work for IBM, a major employer here in the city of Austin, but also a leader in technology, how does that affect the business community? But first with you.
Well, as you indicated in your opening remarks, the statistics are not encouraging, and that those dropout statistics are also true for all of the counties that we're looking at in this program. So from an objective point of view, we've got a long, long ways to go. Our future workforce needs 98% of the people that are in schools to succeed, 100% of the people in schools to succeed, and that's not what's happening. From a subjective point of view, from an awareness and how clear are we about what we need to do and are we doing it, I think Central Texas has moved miles in the last 10 years. So from the first time, we said, this is a disaster, what can we do? There are now very sophisticated partnerships in virtually all communities. I think we're taking the right steps in terms of site-based management. I think we're being very realistic about assessment results and needing to improve them. So we've got a long ways to go, but I feel much better about where we are today than I did 6 years ago when we were just kind of running around.
Now, you in the business community, how has the education situation that we're in right now affected business, not just here in Austin, but maybe nationwide as well?
Well, let me start by saying schools today are better than they were when I went to school and when you went to school and when Pat went to school. But they're not good enough. The demands that business has today are so far superior to what they were before. A high school graduate in the old days could go and work on an assembly line and make a really nice salary, or maybe even drop out. There were no skills required, no creative thinking skills required. Reading, minimal reading skills were necessary, minimum computational skills. Today, the average worker needs to have a high school 9th or 12th grade reading level, computational skills, be very retrainable, and we're not seeing that
I'm
today.
surprised to hear, though, that when you say schools are better, because you hear all the criticism of schools. You hear that they're falling short here, they're falling short in a variety of programs, in what their mission is supposed to be. So when you say schools are better, how can you say that? I mean,
well,
isn't that a difficult stretch when we're all told each and every night on newscasts, on other talk shows, that schools aren't doing the job?
Well, they are not doing the job that needs to be done, but they are better than they were in the past. And,
Okay.
and the difference is, you know, we have not, in the history of this country, the state, agreed in the past that every child needs to be educated. We now have reached that agreement, and that calls for different results.
If you sit down with a 14-year-old today, you will look at a biology course that bears no resemblance to what you learned in biology. It will include biochemistry that wasn't known when I was in school. So there's no question that the course difficulty, the course outcomes are as rigorous as they can possibly be. But I think Ed is perfectly correct. The challenges are getting higher, faster, then we're able to strengthen our ability to educate people. And one of the things that this project wants to do is keep that broad focus. When I said I was encouraged about where we were today, one reason is that we no longer are simply pointing a finger at schools and teachers and saying, gee, what's wrong with them? I think we now understand that it has to do with the requirements of employers that are rapidly changing, the relationship between social services and education, and what's going on in the schools.
Is there, I know that you said it's a we problem, no longer
Right.
just a them or us, but where did the solutions start? I know that's a broad question, but
I think the solutions start in the schools. I think when I chat with members of the business community, I say to them, you would be amazed if you found out that a discussion were taking place across the city with no one from your company represented, and they were talking about the improvement of your company. So it's real clear to me that the leadership for this effort has to come from teachers and from principals and from school administrators in every single school district, in partnership with parents, probably number one, and in strategic partnership with business and other institutions like higher education. And I see some of that beginning to come together. What we've had, and this is progress, I think, what we tried first was legislative mandates. You know, one size fits all, and that's how we'll fix it. I don't think that's going to do it.
we're going to take a short break. But when we come back on Austin Faith Dialogue, we'll continue our discussion on education in the 90s and into the 21st century.
Serving Austin means serving you. That has always been the primary goal of Austin Metropolitan Ministries. We are religion in action through the work of these organizations. Each plays a key role in making the capital city a better place to live, but we can't do it alone. Do you have some spare time, talents, or any resources that you can share? If you do, please call AMM at 472-7627, because serving Austin means serving you.
We are back here on Austin Faith Dialogue. Today's topic is education and its social and economic importance to Central Texas, as well as the nation as a whole. Our guests include Dr. Pat Hayes of St. Edward's University and Ed Adams of IBM. Both are playing a part in a month-long project that is trying to discover what Austinites think of education and how well the education system has performed for all of us. It's called Help Wanted, Must Have Education. When we went to the break, we were talking about solutions to what I guess we all perceive as the problems, or are the problems in education. Ed Adams, what can the business community do to help, if not find solutions, implement some solutions? And where are we going with that? Because a lot of businesses are joining in partnership with school districts and in just even individual schools.
Yeah, businesses have been involved around, particularly around the state of Texas. I belong to an organization and serve on the coordinating committee of the Texas Business and Education Coalition, which is a coalition of businesses and educators aimed at reforming education. And I think the business community would say that the current system has to be restructured. And by restructured, they mean that there needs to be results defined. You know, what outcomes do you want from the system, number one. Secondly, that you revamp the system to be outcome oriented, not prescriptive, not to say from 9 to 10 you shall have 1 hour, and also to bring into the work, into the schools, collaboration, give teachers opportunities to share, to be creative, etc. To utilize technology to the extent that we know that technology can make a major difference. And I don't mean just putting kids in front of computers, but I mean integrating the entire system.
But a real question has been from a lot of educators that maybe what America needs to do is just get back to basics, that somewhere along the line, the reading, writing, and pardon the terrible English, arithmetic, has been lost somewhere along the way. And there are a band of educators that are saying all we need to do is just get back to the basics. That by trying to expand education into this be-all, have-all for all students, maybe we're going to shortchange somebody. And if we just hit the basics, at least we will make a better student out of everyone. Now, where does that fit into the system?
I don't think we can skip the basics, but you heard Ed describe what he experiences in terms of the changing business environment. Our belief is that students need 3 tiers of things. They need strong skills. I almost don't want to say basic skills because they need increasing levels of sophistication in communication, quantitative skills, etc. They need a knowledge context. There's more knowledge than they will ever be able to absorb, than any of us will, but they need to know what continent Uganda is on and who Harry Truman is, and they need to be literate in the sense of being able to place things. But then the critically difficult task that we can't ignore is they need to be problem solvers. They need to be people who are retrainable. And I don't think we can stop at the skill level and lower than that at the basic skill level and say that's going to do it. I don't think that'll do the job.
But maybe a basic that seems to be missing nowadays is the idea of the parental influence of the child. We were talking about this before the program, and we'll have to let the viewers catch up. The idea that there are a lot of single family homes, not just single mothers, single fathers. How much does that play into the effect that when I was a student, or when you two were students, your parents probably had an influence on you? They were watching what you did for homework. They were asking you questions about what you learned in school. Do we do enough of that today? Do we need to do more of that? Where are we in that part of the puzzle?
Well, we certainly don't have enough parental involvement. That's one of the things that we hope this campaign will stimulate. But we cannot make the mistake of building a system that depends totally on parental involvement. And we can't blame the victim. You can't say that. And one of the important things in this campaign, we don't want to blame parents or blame teachers, etc., because there's some parents that aren't capable. There's some kids who don't have those advocates. And one of the things that we at the Texas Business Education Coalition strongly believe is that every child needs to have an advocate, whether that be a parent, a businessman, a mentor, but every child does need an advocate. In many cases, there's not a parent to be.
But to those parents that may feel intimidated by going to the teacher, by asking, what is my child learning today? What should I be aware of, what he is doing? And they might have had a struggle getting through high school. They might have had a struggle well before that even. How can we get them into the loop? Because if we lose them, aren't we losing a potentially new advocate? How do we get them in
I
there?
think both the schools and the business community can play a role there. Sometimes schools are intimidating. Sometimes schools put programs at times that working parents can't come. So I think schools have to be as creative as they can to be flexible to meet the needs of students and to create an environment that is hospitable and non-threatening. That may mean bilingual presentations as well as Spanish presentations as well as English presentations. So there are lots of things that good parental involvement programs can do to help parents become involved, including home visitations in targeted ways. There are also some very exciting employer initiatives. Frequently, parents find it difficult to be involved at schools because they're working. And in Austin, there are some good initiatives in relation to employers providing parents some flexibility to take some time to go to the school and encouraging parents to be involved in the school.
Now, you're getting people involved immediately with this program with a ballot that you will be passing out in everywhere from the Austin American Statesman, as I understand, to local churches, to, as I understand, also potentially in schools. And we have some of the ballot topics on the screen right now. They're going to include the priorities. You want to find out what people think the priorities should be at schools, the problems that are in our education system, the suggested solutions, and the local questions. You have 2 local questions designed specifically for the Austin area and also the 3 other counties as well as Travis. What do you hope to learn, and how successful do you hope that portion of your program will be? What are you aiming for?
Well, the ballot is a really an involvement device. We really want people to actually be part of this campaign, and we feel this is a vehicle by which they can. During the first week of the campaign, there will be a lot of media discussion on the subject and the subjects that are in those questionnaires. And we believe that people at the end of that first week will be able to make an informed judgment on the options. And this ballot really talks about options that are available. And what happens today, you'll ask the average person an opinion, and they've had it all in little 30-second sound bites in the past. Here, I think by immersing this whole community in the subjects of education and all of those issues, that people will be able to make some informed opinions. So what results, the campaign does not desire that folks will say, oh, school-based management is the answer, and 80% of the people like that. What we want to do is get people to think about the options and the pros and cons of those options, and then let us know what they think.
In fact, we want to be careful about the way the results are used, because it is not a scientific sample. There's no guard against Ed and I putting 15 ballots in for return, but we hope it will be a stimulus for further discussion. Interesting, as people reflected about the math and science requirements after this campaign. Look what kinds of results we got.
Now, the results also will be compared with the opinions out of other cities, so that has some utility from a national point of view to say whether people in Austin feel similar to people in Seattle about these issues.
Education always seems to be a hot topic, and we're coming close to a presidential campaign, so that makes it, again, a topic for discussion politically as well as in the idea of the social importance for education. Where do we stand when it comes to the output that government runs the public school system, primarily? And there's always this argument of we need more money to do the job. Do we need more money to do the job? Do we need to have more investment in our education, or do they have enough funds? It's just how they're spending the money that needs to be looked at and investigated. What would be your response?
Some school districts need more money in Texas. Most school districts need flexibility to allocate their money in ways that will achieve the outcome. And I think Commissioner Mino has been very, very clear in his leadership on that. We used to say this curriculum will be fixed, and we need to say the end point has got to be fixed, and a school district has to have the freedom to get to that end point however it can. I also think that some schools need money for targeted items. Technology is a big cost item in the schools. But an awful lot of it, and Ed and I think agree on this, has to do not just with the dollars, but the whole climate and the whole empowerment of people who work in the schools.
You know, too often we think of inputs, equity in inputs. And as Pat said, one school district may need twice as much, or one school may need twice as much money per student coming in to get the same output as another school that would require half the money. And what we need to do is concentrate on the outcomes and then see what needs to go into those individual schools. And I'm so pleased to see that we're starting to give a lot more autonomy to individual schools to be able to come up with how they want to allocate their resources, and to recognize that you may need a school in a school that has less parental involvement, for example. You may have to have more input